Most of the folks I talk to are ADD, ADHD, diagnosed, undiagnosed. It's not a disorder, it's a sign of genius. They're just pure visionaries. Most visionaries, not all, most are futuristic ideators living out there with shiny objects, and they'll do something about it now. What I've learned and what I've frankly always done is enjoyed playing the game in present time.
You have to know who you are, what you stand for, what's important to you, who's important to you, why you're doing it, how you're showing up.
And again, this is what separates entrepreneurs from everyone else. And that's why I know when someone's not a visionary, then when they question this, because like this is the answer.
We've had lots of great conversations, and our mindset is very similar. The people we surround ourselves are very similar. You know, Genius Network, you're an Abundance 360, strategic coach, all the groups of people of, you know, really world changers, people that are out trying to learn more about themselves, grow with and through themselves, and mostly surround themselves with people that challenge them to think bigger. Talk a little bit about your network, because I think your network is one of the most important and impactful things that people can learn from you on.
Well, there's a two-part answer to that. You know, talking to regular humans, it's very confusing. They just kind of stare at me, which is fine. That's most of the world. And then people like us are usually aliens within our own family, community, and verticals. The only people that understand us are top visionary entrepreneurs on planet. So I spend most of my life talking like this, and people would just stare at me. But a true visionary will never stop. So, because they want to have love, impact, faith, and energy in an epic way. So you just keep talking like this, and then you find out that the people who actually understand and resonate are people like you, who really want to change the world and will do whatever it takes and are doing it. So that's one. And if you have the right mindset, it attracts the right network, and then that network creates right opportunities. Okay, so that's one. Okay, so that's the metaphysical, the mind aspect of it. The second part is doing something about it, taking action, creating something. And the second company that I helped create is called BrEpic Network. And it's literally just a platform, a connectivity platform for people like us. And my wife has become the COO along with me and my partner, Mark Fujiwara. And the same way my wife has brought harmony and relation and love into family, she's brought that into company. And we had our first actual meeting last week, and it was the single best, if you want to call it mastermind or whatever the human word is for it, it was the single best mastermind I've ever attended, because it wasn't about the person running it. It was about the people in it. And there were no business owners. It was all visionaries, connectors like us. And to see it happen in real time by putting the principles that you talk about, each meeting is a moment of mentorship, and then love, impact, faith, and energy, and then to bring together a group of people like that, and then now it's going to just grow upon itself. It's just beautiful. It's beautiful, and it's because of having the right mindset and then taking action to actually do something about that.
So something cool about your story, in my opinion, is your father. Your dad was 61 years old when you were born, and he met your mother after a DUI. He basically saw a drunk driver hit him, and he ended up in the hospital. I'd love for you to just give a little background of your upbringing, because I think your interest in learning from people, especially people that are older, wiser, you know, all the things that a lot of people are intimidated by.
No.
Really, it was a part of your upbringing.
And that's great simplification. For the record, I believe you're 2 years younger than me. I'm 46. I believe you're 44, or maybe you're 45.
45 now. I'm 45.
You are 45 now. So the only reason I mentioned that is because you and I are very similar, that I think we gravitate toward folks with more wisdom. Mostly, not always, but mostly the more wisdom comes with older age. I mean, that would be logical, but sometimes there's some really young folks, including my 9-year-old son, who have more wisdom than either of us, frankly, that's very rare. But so we gravitate towards older, wiser folks. I do think to your point, which is correct, the reason why I gravitate is because my father was 61 when I was born, 61. He was born in 1916. He'd be 107 now. And he died when I was 13. And then chapter 1 of Epic Life is the cream rises to the top. So when he was alive, this is, again, going back to each meeting is a moment of mentorship. Every day he would say the cream rises to the top. So that's chapter 1 of books. So, I talk to and partner with and connect with, collaborate with. The cream that rises to the top are those that will do whatever it takes. And I just think it's, I was on another show, Jim and Jamie Shields, great visionaries, great visionaries. If you don't know them, I can connect you to them. They're great visionaries. And they were talking about having an older father. It was very interesting because if you think about it from an age and wisdom standpoint, you get older and wiser for the most part. So having a child when you're 61, and then my dad was 64 when my youngest brother was born, you've gone through all this stuff and you've learned so much wisdom, and then you can put it into your children. So I got the very best of my dad, who had survived, World War II, Spanish flu, the Depression. He should have been killed multiple times in World War II, but survived, got back into planes after another one had been shot down and he wasn't wearing a parachute. Attorney in Nuremberg Nazi war crime trial. So I got all of that. His best friend was killed in a mafia hit. So I got all of that wisdom. And really, so I hate using the word should, but I should be like 80 now. Like I should have been born in the 40s, or even late 30s. So I'm like a older, and you're very similar. We're like, wisdom of like a 70, 80, maybe even 90-year-old in a mid 40s body, and then childlike mindset of like a 5 or 6-year-old. Like I'm like a child. I'm like a kid. I do things that even my children look at me like, why are you acting like that? Because the great entrepreneurs, they're all like that, little kids.
They're playful. Well, I mean, and you end your book in that way with advice from Xander, the kid's coach, who says, I have it written down here. It's just enjoy playing, and what that means is you have to enjoy the ride. I feel like I might have told you this before, but I'll say it again. I've been hanging out with some of my longtime friends, and one of my longtime best friends from high school and I were having coffee on my balcony at the beach, and we're talking, and he said, I got to think about the future. I've always been really present based. I've always been really focused here. And he said, Scott, you were always in the future. Like
right.
when you were 14, you wanted to be 16. When you were 16, you wanted to be 18, 18, 21, 21, 25.
Yes.
And what's interesting is I told him, I said, the beauty of learning from your friends is the ability to take what they do with ease and help apply it to something that you've been challenged with, because
100%.
I need that present state a lot more. And so the next half of my life, I've focused and started to several years ago on this present state and focusing on playing the game, not just the result.
Well, so again, that's fascinating. If you were to combine, so I hear blah, blah, blah. Most of the folks I talk to are ADD, ADHD, diagnosed, undiagnosed. It's not a disorder. It's a sign of genius. They're just pure visionaries, and they're living in the future, in idea, shiny object world, but they'll do something about it now. I'm very low in ideation, very low in futuristic, and pure activator. So like go, go, go. So if you combined your friend and you, it would be some version of me. It would be me. So like I can think about it and then just do it. I'll just do it. That's the only way to actually learn anything is just, take action, make the investment. Talk is meaningless to me. You just do it. And before starting entrepreneur life, I was an entrepreneur who happened to be a journalist. I didn't know that until becoming an entrepreneur, but like I was just, so you don't get into journalism for like employee count or revenue. It's confused. That stuff's confusing to me. It's business owner stuff. So my whole life, again, being raised by someone with that type of wisdom, it's always been about purpose and connectivity and talking to people like us. It's just people like us were hard to find at first because we're usually aliens within our own family, community, and vertical. So it took most of my life to find the right people. But what I've learned and what I've frankly always done is enjoyed playing the game in present time. So like when a business owner asks me like, what do you want to do 3 to 6 months from now? I go, I don't know. I go, I'm enjoying my day now. And my favorite quote is from Earl Nightingale. He's the OG, if you want to call them motivational speakers, if you want to call him that. But he's the OG. And my favorite quote of his is, success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So my worthy ideal, besides hanging out with my wife and our sons who are 10 and 9, they're both 9 quick start, 2 follow-throughs like you. They're 10 and 9. Then my wife's a stabilizing human who's really smart, pediatrician. So my worthy ideal is purpose of life, zone of genius, unique ability, whatever you want to call it. And that is to be connecting superhero for every visionary. So not human, not consultant, not business owner, visionary who shares their stories with the world, not their world. I've never understood that. So to me, it's just getting better at that every single day, or just whatever you want to call a day. So I've found and learned that all this other stuff takes care of itself by being in your worthy ideal and progressively realizing it.
Yeah, and finding the joy every day. I mean, I think for someone like me, I've talked about this in the podcast before, I had to come to the realization. I think I spent so much time trying to focus on results.
You're out here.
Yeah, I was missing. You miss a lot,
right.
and I think that I'm going to use another term from your book. I love Godwink because it's not just the randomness. It's actually there is a faith is a part of my 4 quadrants and my life quadrant, and at the end of the day, things happen, and the way I describe it is, and you and I have talked about this, is the scatter plot of life. Like things are happening along the way, and they're happening, and you don't really see how they even connect to each other. But when you look back, they're all in a line and in alignment towards where you're supposed to be.
100%.
Right now.
Well, again, success is the progressive realization. It's the same. And I'm a very simple person. Like people from the outside are like, oh, you're doing all this stuff. I go, I'm really not. I'm literally just spending time with my family or in my worthy ideal. And you talk about results, which I'm very grateful for that. Most visionaries, not all, most are futuristic ideators living out there with shiny objects, and they'll do something about it now. That I am a present visionary. So I have a vision, but I'm constantly working on it in present. So there are only 2 10Xs, only 2 that I care about, only 2. And only 2 questions I ask myself every day, only 2. Because all this other stuff is business owner stuff that I've never understood and I frankly don't care about. So one is that I have a good experience that day with my family. Did I have a good experience today with my family? So that's 1. Every day the answer to that is yes. 2, did network grow on a global level? And I found every day the answer to that is yes. So doing something like this, talking to someone like this, whether it's recorded or not, posting something on social media, it attracts the right people. So I found all this business owner stuff is taking care of itself. Okay, so that's 1. 2, again, success is progressive realization of worthy ideal. I look at children, and I know you look at your family in the same way, progressive realization. Or I was talking to my 9-year-old son, Chase, when he was 8. We went out to dinner. So again, Chase has more wisdom than me. He was born with that because he has my brain, and then my wife is pediatrician, warmth, empathy, with very high IQ. So he's a combination of that. So we were out to dinner, and Chase provided the single best definition of what life and epic life actually are, but I just let him talk and explain it. So when we were talking about bending time and IQ, because when you're someone like this, you don't really talk. You talk about human stuff, but then you talk about bending time and IQ. So Chase considers life one long great day. So yesterday's before you were born, tomorrow's after you die. So life is one long great day. So, and then he said there are only two ways to have a great day. One, create more living things. The fundamental purpose of any living thing is to create more living things. So that could be a human life, that could be planting a tree or a flower, taking care of an animal, something like that. Creating a foundation or a company, that's creating a living thing. So that's one. I don't think there's an argument against that. If there was, I'd like to hear it, but there wouldn't be anything here if there was an argument against that. So that's one. And then two, he said, do what you like to do and what you're good at and keep getting better at it. So he's like a living 9-year-old version of Earl Nightingale. So that's the best version of epic life I've ever heard.
Yeah, I've very rarely seen people that are cultivating something with purpose that are unhappy. You know, it's cultivation. I just spent 2 weeks in Europe, and we went and had a great trip. Saw Italy mostly, but also did a little bit of France, a little bit of Spain. Mm-hmm. And there's a theme. You know, the happiest people that you came across, they're creating, they're cultivating. They might be living off the land. They might be, you know, there's this mentality. It's a slower pace of enjoying every day. It's that one long happy day in between the day that you were born and the day that you're gone.
It's been time. It's a really interesting thing that you said. I'll dovetail it. The first question I ask myself every day, did I have a good experience that day with my family? The reason why I ask that, and what you said is so profound, and it's very collaborative with what you just said, but the reason why I ask that is because I've never met anyone, regardless if they're a visionary like us or not, that has had a good family life that hasn't had a good life. If you know someone that has had a good family life that hasn't had a good life, I'd like to meet that person. I haven't. Those are the folks I found that are the happiest. What you said is just as profound because they're focused on their purpose. We said the same thing with a different word. It's really fascinating.
Well, you talk about this in the book as well, and it's really important. People that are extrinsically motivated by junk, by stuff. This is what you're saying again.
Winning the wrong game.
Yeah, they're winning the wrong game. And they're playing the wrong game. They're winning the wrong game. They're focused on the cars, the
wrong results,
the extra relationships. It's literally an empty game. The people that are happiest have a great time. I mean, if you ask me what one of the best parts of the entire trip was, it was in Tuscany in a vineyard, and we're getting the lesson of all the wine, and then everybody got to taste the wine. Now, the ages are a lot different. I have some high schoolers, and they were allowed to taste, and they weren't drinking the wine like my buddy and I were. We were.
Don't mess up with son's soccer. Don't mess up the soccer thing. Okay, he's got to make that's national team. Let's go.
Yeah, they definitely were, but they were interested in learning something that they're not interested in.
Right.
And see, that's where you see the spark, and you do it as a family.
Yes.
It's why endorphins will flow so much more when you're doing something new and unique with people that you love. So,
and that's the value of That's the true value of entrepreneurship to me, is that you have the freedom to be able to do things like that more than someone who's in a job. That's really, to me, that's the true value of this life.
And when you're talking about a network and you're trying to be connected to all the right people, you know, one of the things that I think is really important is a lot of people focus on other people, but before you do that, you have to focus on yourself.
100%.
Talk to the listeners a little bit about Colby. We've talked about this, and we both believe that personality is something that can help us not only learn about ourselves, but learn how to interact with other people.
Yes.
And so I feel like this is a great talking point and subject for our listeners, because understanding who you are will give you superpowers to connect with the people that are only going to give you more amplification and abundance in your life.
Okay. Thank you. So I see the world in numbers and keywords. Okay. So most humans don't, I don't think they do, but I see the world in numbers and keywords. And then if I know the number and keyword, I can actually create a pattern that is beneficial for everyone. Okay. So everything in my life is like I hear blah, blah, blah from top visionary and then simplify it into a pattern or a number. Or a keyword. Okay. So that's how I see the world. That's how I see it. So my three favorite ways of doing that in a test or whatever, assessment, whatever you want to call it. One is Kolbe, Kolbe. It's not your personality. It's how your brain takes action. I don't really care what someone's personality is. I want to know if they're going to do something. So, and all I do is talk to visionaries. So not humans, not business owners, not consultants, visionaries. There's a fundamental difference in that. But so most visionaries in Kolbe world, A index takes 55 US dollars, 20 minutes. I always know when someone's not a visionary when they ask,
how much does it cost?
It's okay. Well, that's my seal. Or I won't take this because I don't need it. Okay. All right. I just gave you billions of dollars worth of information for 50. Okay. So most visionaries are like you. They're very high quick start. 10 is the highest. You're a 9. And then they have little to no follow through. You're a 2. Lowest is the 1. So that's ADD, diagnosed, undiagnosed. It's not a disorder. Sign of genius, mislabeled by humans. Without hiring humans or stabilizers or, someone like that, disaster. Okay, so you're a 9 quick start, 2 follow through. Both of my children are 9 quick start, 2 follow. I am the very, 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 very rare visionary that has high quick start, boom, 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 and high follow through, hit the brakes, and high fact finder. So the first 3 numbers for me are very high. I'm 8, 6, 7 in those. That's unicorn. You'll probably never meet someone else with that. And then the last number is I'm a 1 in that. I'd be a 0 if that existed. That number is implementer, which in this case means using your hands to build anything. I don't know how to hold a pencil right. It's a disaster for me. Puzzles are a nightmare. Fixing things, nightmare. Okay. So that's Kolbe. Most people like us, not all, but most of people like us are married to a stabilizing human, which my wife is. She's lower quick start, higher follow through. So slow to start something, but endlessly great follow through, which is perfect. So usually people like us are married to a teacher, my wife's a pediatrician, a nurse, a social worker, a lawyer, an engineer, a human.
I call them nurturers. I needed a nurturer. I needed someone to actually, that also wasn't afraid to let me fail a lot of times so that I could then rebuild a better version of myself.
Okay. And to your point, because I can get trapped in, I'm a high fact finder. I don't want to get trapped in that and this, but this really, to me, this really is these are the answers here. All this other stuff takes care of itself if you know these answers and you never give up. You just, because progressive realization. But my partner, by the way, is a 1596. That's a pure, so he's a 1 fact finder, the only 1 factor I've ever met, but he's a 6 implementer. So he built the second company. He can build, draw, technology. I can't do that. That would be a nightmare for me. Complete nightmare.
And your partner and I have had several conversations, and we've become fast, great friends because there's so many similarities. And he's an awesome guy. He's your Babs, which you could talk about in a little bit.
100%.
I won't let you talk about it. So you were on the point where you were basically saying people need 3 things, and Kolbe's number 1.
Yes. Thank you for with your 2 follow through. Good job with that.
Yeah, no, that's
your follow response today. That's it. You're done with follow through. Okay, so 2 is strength finders, Gallup Clifton strength finders. And I'll exactly explain what it means for me, my wife, who's the COO of second company, and then partner, who's the backstage visionary genius. So I am dead last in empathy. 34 of them dead last in empathy, second to last in includer. For top visionaries like us, I have endless empathy, endless inclusion. My partner is competition 1, maximizer 2, empathy 3. For people like us, that's almost unheard of. So he is collaborative empathy. My wife is harmony 1, harmony. I'm 31 out of 34 in harmony. She's collaborative harmony. Relator 2, achiever 3. So she will achieve, but through nurturing, relation. Okay. Your wife is probably very high an achiever.
Absolutely. Yeah, she's
okay.
both. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So why do I know that? Because when you know the pattern, here's the answer. All this other stuff takes care of itself. And then I am activator, maximizer, achiever. So my wife and I are both 3 an achiever. I achieve by go, 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 go. And my wife's like, be nice. Say thank you. Relation. So my wife, again, has brought harmony to family, relation to family, achieving with family, and harmony, relation, and achieving to second company. And then my partner brings empathy for all, but he will win big and maximize at the highest level. Okay, so that's strength finders. The third one is print, PRINT, which is similar to Enneagram, so you can kind of interchange that. That is unconscious motivators. So I just talked about conscious things. Now I'm talking about unconscious. So I am an 8-3. 8 is to be strong and self-reliant. 3 is to succeed and achieve. So there's no overthinking. There's no overfeeling. There's execute, execute, execute. Certainly not all, but most great entrepreneurs, the really highest performing ones, are usually 8-3s because they don't, that's why they're going up here. They don't overthink or overfeel anything. My partner is a 3-8, Mark Fujiwara. So his unconscious motivators are to succeed and achieve and to be strong and self-reliant. So consciously, he and I are collaborative, and unconsciously, we share the same motivations. That's very important. We do it in different ways, but we want to do the same. Okay, so that's him with me. My wife, which I'm guessing your wife is very similar to this. My wife is a 2-6. So 2 is to be needed and appreciated, and 6 is to feel safe and secure. That is a feeler thinker. So that's not the ideal for an entrepreneur, but it is for a nurturer. It is for harmony relator. And then when a feeler thinker feels safe and secure long enough, because we've been married 15 years, been together for almost 20, then she will take the chance and phase out of pediatrics and become COO of second company. And then she will bring that same thing. And because she has high follow-through, she'll never stop. And then she brings that same type of joy and relation into company that she does in family. So that was a very high-level way of explaining it, but that's really why it works. That's why it works in a number of keyword perspective.
And let me, for the listeners, a high-performance life, love, impact, faith, and energy is really built on relationships and partnerships.
100%.
And when you have the wrong relationships and the wrong partnerships, life is very difficult. Just talk to someone who married the wrong person early in life.
I talk to them all the time.
It's very challenging. It changes the whole trajectory. I talk to so many entrepreneurs that have been divorced, lost everything they built in the first part. Plus, they don't even enjoy the person that they spent the first half of their life with.
Nightmare.
And so if the reason what we're talking about is so important is that these are the cheat codes. These are the ways that if you're trying to figure out the path of least resistance and most abundance, you do these things.
Right. The process, one of the chapters is the process is the shortcut. We just provided in 5 minutes of explanation, we just provided the shortcut. And that's why I know when someone's not a visionary, then when they question this, because this is the answer. This is all this other stuff is great. So the reason why I wrote Epic Life, because the subtitle is How to Build Collaborative Global Companies While Putting Your Loved Ones First. Not only do I know people like us want that, but visionaries are the most damaged people with the best coping skills. And then they use coping skills to create all this stuff, and then they torch their family or never have one in a process. I mean, so I talk to 1 to 2 people like us every week, that have let entrepreneur life destroy their family life or prevented them from anything meaningful. They're wrong person. So from a divorce marriage perspective, I've seen 2 reasons why it was I was on another show and the host compared it to Thelma and Louise. That's fine. So it was a pretty good analogy, I thought, driving off the cliff. So I've seen 2 reasons why that's happened. 1, someone like us, a high quick start, in your case, high quick start, lower follow through, married a high quick start, low follow through. So there was no nurturing, no stabilizing human. So it's just, when that happens, it's either the greatest life imaginable, traveling the world, more often than not total disaster, because there's no stabilization. Okay, so that's what I see most often.
For those of you that are into casual opportunities, that's your one night stand. That is a really, really great night of your life.
Yes.
And a nightmare for the rest of it.
Thank you. Thank you for simplifying that. But that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll not add any more to that because I'll get in trouble with my wife. But okay, so then the second one is, again, usually people like us marry stabilizing humans. Thank God for that, a nurturer. Where I see that going wrong is the stabilizing human is not the nurturer. They're not the supporter. In that case, they're the preventer. They don't understand or want to understand the visionary, and they don't let the visionary be capable of what the visionary actually is. And why I'm sure your marriage works and why my marriage works and family works is that maybe once a year I'll have a great idea. It's actually less than that. But if I have a great idea, I know it's a great idea. I'm 32 out of 34 in ideation, but top 3 are activate, maximize, achieve. So I just know. There's only one person I ask whether I should or should not do it, and that's my wife. Because my wife is a stabilizing human who's a very high achiever and incredibly supportive, and she won't BS me. So if it's a great idea, I go, she's a pediatrician. I go, well, Dr. Sarah Breen. So I go, Sarah, should I do this? And she goes, yes. Or she'll go, no. And she does yes, and then I just do it. I don't care what anyone else says. So she's the ultimate supporter. And people like us really, I know this, we really need that. We just need that one person who we trust more than anyone to support us. And then where I see it go wrong is the spouse, whether it's a man or a woman, they don't support, they detract. That's where I see it going wrong, when it's the wrong stabilizing human.
Yeah, and an interesting dynamic to this, and I've found myself doing this every once in a while, is when you're a visionary and you are an idea person and you can see the path to success so clearly.
It's right there.
Right? Yeah. But you're also intense and you're a lot. And so as I've gotten older, I've found there are times where I pull back on the throttle and then I feel completely uncomfortable about it.
Right.
And my wife, who is that stabilizer, can move it. She could do one of two. She could do one of two things. She can assume the leadership role and become a preventer, and then I start to go, no, this is wrong. We have to. But it was my fault because I wasn't as confident because I just didn't want to be so intense. And so you have to really pay attention to yourself and how you're leading. There are times where I know the right decision. I'm leading our family in the right way, and we are both on the same page. There are times where she has to lead us because it has to do with something I'm not great at all. 100%. And so I see this and what you said as something that's so important. And yes, early in our marriage, she led me to think bigger. She led me
100%.
A whole different level of thinking. And today, sometimes I have to be careful to not let her get me to a point where I start to think so big, and she's like, okay, I like the big thinking, but are you sure? And I'm like, no, we got this. We have this together. I'm already planning the next 2 iterations of life, right?
Of course.
But I think it's a good thing to talk about because I can see entrepreneurs, especially hard-charging idea visionaries, as getting a little tired of maybe doing it in every aspect of their life, but forgetting your role. If you get the cheat code and you have the right recipe and the numbers match, to your point, don't forget what makes it work. You've got to be in those roles, and you got to respect each other's differences because it's what makes you stronger together.
It's all collaborative. It's all, I've found collaborative empathy in my life with partner, and collaborative harmony that's all it is. And again, a visionary will understand you started this interview, which was great, with like who you are. I have found knowing who you're not first will lead to who you are. So I'm not a business owner. I'm not an empath for the world. I'm not a glad handing BS. Like I'm not that. I'm not a builder of, things with my hands. I can see things in space and connectivity, but I'm not a builder. So I just focus on spending time with my family, and then what I'm really not good at, what I'm great at, like exceptional at the highest level, and then just keep getting better at it. And life is just such a fun journey. It's a fun day when you really discover that. And it really is the cream rising to the top, as my dad said. I mean, to me, that's what the cream rising to the top is. It's this, you're kind of stuck in the bottom of the barrel and you're surrounded by this thing that you aren't the milk, you're the cream, you're the sweetest, the fattiest, the best tasting, and then you'll just kind of bubble through, and then you'll be on there, you'll be on the top. And then what an entrepreneur really is, what a visionary really is, not a silver spoon, that's a different conversation, but a true entrepreneur, most damaged, best coping skills. So most damage, four things. Separate entrepreneurs from humans and business owners. 4 things. 1, bankruptcy or potential bankruptcy. 2, depression. 3, highest level of anxiety you can imagine. 4, likely and or possible traumatic experiences as a child or young adult. 4 things. So humans, business owners, consultants, most of the world, those are excuses. Visionary, okay, well, still gonna rise to the top, figure it out, get back into a plane after another one was shot down and you didn't have a parachute, figure it out. And then they have the highest IQ, highest EQ, most hustle, most guts, they'll do whatever it takes. And then again, sadly, because entrepreneurs create things that help everyone else, but sadly, so they use those coping skills to create the things, and then they torch the family. They're winning the wrong game. So many times they have to go through the divorce or a fractured relationship with children or no family for years, and then they realize, or some never realize, that they've been winning the wrong game. But that's what a true entrepreneur actually is. And with Epic Life, the chapter that, because they're like, well, most of the time being interviewed, they're like, so what's the number one thing? And I go, well, the chapter winning the wrong game, because entrepreneurs are all smart. So if they might not even realize what game they're winning. But if they realize that they're winning a game that they don't actually want to win, or it's not the terrible rules and terrible results, not real results, then they can change their brain.
Well, you can do it. Once you learn the formulas, you can always earn more money. You can always find more opportunity. It's actually having the ability to know when is enough to your core values. What are you working towards? 100%. What are you actually building towards? I also think something else you just said that's really good to just go back on is a lot of entrepreneurs, if you're listening to this and you find yourself, I know I've had this happen before, where I go into a new room and that we talk about the cream rising to the top. You're meant for something different. You're meant for something better. If you're in the wrong room and you stay in that wrong room for too long, you'll blow yourself up. I
literally, second company, I created a room because I wanted to make the right room. That's my point. That's how I was so excited about it. You just so there's 2 things. That was tremendous. There are 2 things. I'm a simplifier. Everything is a formula. Everything is a pattern. Everything. So 1, I keep making bigger investments to be in smaller rooms, but the people in those rooms are making bigger impacts. Bigger investment, bigger check, smaller room, bigger impact. That allows me to spend biggest investment in smallest room, which is my family, where I can make most impact. Because if you're not a litmus test for people you serve, that's hypocrisy. If you're not a litmus test for the people you serve, you can't. If you aren't love, impact, faith, energy, how are you supposed to talk about love, impact? That's illogical. That doesn't even make sense. And then 2, the rooms that I'm in are all great, but they didn't satisfy everything that I wanted. So you just create your own room. You create that's why it's the best mastermind I've ever been to, because there was no business owner stuff. It was all connections, all connectivity, and everyone was there to collaborate. Everyone. No business owner stuff. And then it was all about the members talking. So that's what it is. It's the same formula, and then you just do it for yourself first, because it's not selfish, it's selfless, because you're being a litmus test for the people you serve.
It comes back to that awareness. You have to know who you are, what you stand for, what's important to you, who's important to you, why you're doing it, how you're showing up. You know, it's all those things. But if you don't like the room you're in, create your own room.
Or just or write a bigger check to be in a smaller room. I mean, it's what you said was the key. And again, this is what separates entrepreneurs from everyone else. The entrepreneur will write that check or create their own room. The business owner will question it. They won't do it. And again, from a numbers perspective, there are exceptions. But almost every visionary, and I'm actually an exception, but almost every visionary is an 8, 9, or 10 quick start. I'm a 7 or under. I've talked to Gino Wickman, become a great friend of mine, the head of Colby, Amy Brusky. I've talked to other Colby folks. A 7 or under like me can become a visionary, but this is them saying it, not me. They have to have exceptionally high IQ and or EQ because they can game the system. But a true visionary is 99% of the time is like you. 8, 9, or 10 quick start.
Well, and you know it because you're sitting in a room. You present any problem to a visionary, and they are as excited as they were the first time they tasted their best.
100%.
Like it doesn't. You could talk to me about your business, and I can say, hey, what's challenging you right now? And I could spend hours. I won't even know that I'm there. Like I'll wake up and it's like Will Ferrell in Old School, where he kind of comes to and he has no idea. Yeah. He has no idea where he's been, but it just happens.
Yes. That's how I am connecting people like you to people like you. That's it.
Yeah. And it's a lot of fun. And when you do that and you're surrounded by people like that, it drives you. It's the same thing goes. I don't know that the same thing applies to the other groups, because I feel like to some extent, if you're too much of that, stabilizer or security, and you're surrounded with so many others that are just like that, it's you have to have a catalyst, and you're the catalyst. And I think a lot of people that listen to our show are catalysts. They're sparks. They're high performers, and you're the friend that when you go somewhere, people are like, wow, you're a lot. You get a lot of energy. Yeah. And everybody kind of at times. You say in the book, it's good. Mediocre people don't like high achievers, and high achievers don't like mediocrity and mediocre people. and it's so true, because you'll be in a room and someone's like, yeah, I'm just really looking forward to X, Y, and Z. And you're like, well, have you thought about ABC? And they're like, no,
headlights.
Never. I don't even know what that means.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. And when you embrace that difference, when you embrace that unique ability, and here's what I've also learned that I think we've talked about, the relationships, the partnerships.
Yeah.
I am so intrigued and so excited by people that aren't like me. There's a difference. I'm not turned off by people that aren't like me. I am excited because I'm like, wow, we could really build something special together.
100%. Because each meeting is a moment of mentorship.
That's it. Yeah, and I'm learning as much in each meeting as the other person is teaching, and they'll walk away and they'll say, hey, I learned so much. I can't believe it. I'm thinking to myself, man, you have no idea how much I learned today. So valuable.
Fascinating. My wife and I, well, technically I'm the one in Strategic Coach, but my wife has been at Couples Connection. That's where the entrepreneur and his spouse or partner go to, and then they hang out with, visionaries with their stabilizing human partner spouse. For the most part, it's stabilizing humans. And then, so we met some folks there, Gary and Gina Gerke. So we had lunch with them in Michigan. At the time of this recording, it was yesterday. We lunch with them. And it was the most fascinating lunch because, and then our kids were there too, but we were talking about what Gary and Gina are building, because Gary is an 8 quick start. He's an 8 quick start. And then Gina's lower, but now she's going to be running one of his companies. And then I'm a 7 quick start. My wife, Sarah's a 4. And now she's essentially running one of my companies. And they're in their, I would say, mid-50s. And then I'm in mid-40s. Sarah's much younger than me. But not much, but enough. And then so it was fascinating to have that discussion, that we're like, because Gina, Gary's wife, never would have run a company without him. Sarah never would have run a company without me. And then Gary and I would never have had any kind of harmonious, loving life without our wives. It would have been, I mean, not impossible, but basically impossible. It just wouldn't have happened. So we were on the same timeline at different points in life, and it was just a wonderful, and then our kids who are 10 and 9, they were listening to it and absorbing it and then chiming in with their own opinions about visionaries and integrators and stabilizing humans and building things. So it was just a fascinating discussion that you just wouldn't be able to have with people that aren't like that. It would have been one-way conversation into nothing. It would have been deer in the headlights.
Well, I have a theory about running companies, and this is something that I feel like I've been learning and I have a really clear picture of. I don't believe visionaries are designed to run companies.
No.
So the beautiful thing
Absolutely.
is that visionaries are designed to create companies.
100%.
It's like raising children. You do not want me to raise
Bad idea.
my children past a certain age because I'm too much. I want to keep creating. I want to keep developing. I want to get better every day. I want to,
Right.
and so that's way too, when a company has to stabilize, it has to build the foundation. It has to be really innovative, and then it has to stabilize at some point in time. You still have to grow. Don't get me wrong, but the entrepreneur, the true visionary, wants to take it to the moon. And sometimes the business has run its cycle. Sometimes it's at the right cycle to be run. And so what I believe is exactly what you and your friend were talking about, which is building the companies is what excites visionaries, developing them, but running them does not get you excited. It actually bores the shit out of us.
Boring. And it was, thank you for swearing. I appreciate that.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it gets to that. No, because that's what it is. I mean, it's expletive because it's not what you're designed to do. And so like, I very rarely, almost never get like this. But when I first had the idea of starting this second company, I was in my former car, which was very fast. I was on the highway, and then I just saw it. You probably get like this once a day, or maybe more than that. I get like this maybe once a year. So I saw this company. I saw it, and I just floored it. I mean, I was going very, very fast, and because I just saw it. And then to see it happen in real time last week, almost 3 years after flooring it, it was so exciting to see that. And then my wife I don't even attend her meetings with Mark, my partner, because I would just, it'd be a bad idea. It would be a terrible idea for me to be in those meetings because I'm not backstage at all. But to see the flooring of the accelerator in real time, and now knowing that it's in good hands, they'll build it to however they wanted it. I just knew it was going to be great and I wanted it to work, which it does. And I know it will be. And now to have that trust in other folks to do what they're great at, it's a beautiful thing. To your point, what I know is with the cycle is the connection community and this network will create something even bigger. What that is, I don't know. But when it happens, I'll know what it is. And then it will create something else from this. Like the first company I have, which still exists, it's a global PR firm. I was a journalist for 20 years. for 20 years, created an entire company based on how PR firms annoyed me. So I don't even know what PR firms do. So I always used to say in interviews like this that the PR firm is just a giant incubator of geniuses, and we're constantly introducing each other for mutual gains. So the second company, it's just a platform for that. So literally the first company created the second because of talking about it. And then talking about the second one will create whatever the third one is. And I'll know it when it is because I very rarely know it. But then when I do, I know.
Yeah. Some people have to like you to trust you. Some people have to, I always think about this. Some people have to actually like you to trust you. Some people have to trust you to like you. The visionary can actually fall in love with an idea,
yes,
and trust it to run its course because they love it.
That's you.
And that is true, and it's hard to explain.
No, I can explain it. I can explain it in human terms if you want me to.
Yeah, go ahead. I think it's cool.
Because here's the answer. Dr. Doug Brackman, he wrote the book Driven. He's become a really good friend of mine because he's genuinely confused by my brain. Genuinely confused. IamDriven.com. Free assessment, 5 minutes. I am driven. I will simplify it. The typical human brain, the farmer sheep brain, it's a small gray circle. That's most people find. The typical driven brain, which is, I'm sure this is yours, is a giant red circle around it. A giant red circle. Okay. It takes 5 minutes. If you want to take it, if you haven't taken it, send me yours. So he saw mine, and then he interviewed me because he was confused. My intuition, and this is what we're talking about, my intuition is fully off the charts. Most visionaries, their intuition, their gut it's floating around up here, okay? So that's definitely you, for sure. Where I'm different than almost every visionary is I'm actually less bored than an average human. Most visionaries are very bored because they're looking for next thing. I'm never bored because I'm always in my zone of genius, spending time with family, connecting visionaries. So I'm less bored than an average human. The other thing is I have like zero perfectionism, zero. Many visionaries, they're very high in perfectionism. I'm almost zero in that. I just want to get it started and see what happens. And then your resilience is off the charts and your risk-taking is off the charts, as is mine. So like, I'm like a mostly visionary who's like less bored than a human, which is like unheard of.
Yeah, we just got back from a couple weeks in Europe, by the way, and my perfect day is no plan, no plan. Where do we end up? How could it go? And that is not the perfect plan for the majority of people. So what I've learned is I go with the plan, but then there have to be peppered in some days of chance where we 100%. End up at a restaurant. We actually, the last day, we're in Rome. We had to stay an extra day because we got a direct flight back to DC and then drove home the rest.
Okay.
But the last day, we're searching for our last lunch, big lunch. We're going to do a big lunch and a light dinner. And we're searching for our last big lunch, and I find the restaurant. It's called Life.
You better go there.
It's top 100, in the top 100 of 9,900 restaurants in Rome.
Okay.
And I'm like, let's go check it out. We end up having an amazing bottle of wine, a great lunch. We've been in Rome now over 2 weeks off and on a couple of times. So now my kids know where the good carbonara is. They know what to order, how to order it. Like everything was great. Just a really, really nice lunch. AC was pumping, which makes my wife super happy. And because it's not like that everywhere else. So she really does. No AC doesn't bother me like it bothers so many others. But for me, it was just the pure chance. We had to kill time.
I don't believe in the Airbnb. I don't believe in that. That was meant to be.
Yeah, it was. It was awesome. And so anyway, just a great experience, a great idea, the kind of things that just happen. I also wandered into an Italian shop and bought a suit jacket and a couple of shirts. And they're like, what is wrong with you, Dad? Why are you just...
What are you talking about? My son and I, we're in Michigan right now. So my son and I, we're staying with another family, and they're very nice people, but they're all stabilizing humans, all of them. And it's nice to hang out with them, and then they stare at me and they're confused by everything I say, but that's fine. And then so my son Chase and I, we walked over. We're out near Lake Michigan, so we just walked over to one of the charter services, and then I just started talking to the captain, who's, by the way, he's just like us. He's definitely a visionary. And then I go, oh, what, when can we book it? And he's like, what do you want to do? 4 hours for whatever, or 7 hours? Like, oh, we'll just do 7 hours. It's $1,000 fishing trip. Like, my son's like, oh no, but do the 1,000 one. I'm like, yeah, great idea. Here you go. But that's fun. Like, that's the equivalent of going to Life Restaurant or buying a night suit. Like, why wouldn't you do that? That's fun.
When we know ourselves and we have a clear understanding of the direction, not only that we've come from, but where we're heading, we are very comfortable with the result of most days. That's really what it comes down to. When you have an understanding of where you've come from and who you are and where you're heading, it's okay if it's not perfect. That perfectionism is what gets in the way of success
100%.
so often.
Right.
And so I don't give a darn if it doesn't turn out to be perfect. My kids laughed at me the whole time. They're like, oh, dad's not hot. Dad's not burnt. Dad's not. No, because my mindset's everything. I tell them this all the time. I'm like, no, because if I say I'm hot, then I do become hot. And then I start thinking about how hot I am. One of your favorite books, Viktor Frankl, and A Man's Search for Meaning.
Number one.
When you look at that book and you look at how he watched his friends pass on because they got lost in thinking the wrong things and not seeing the future and not being in that present moment and not finding so much of what they could control, even if it was small. There were so many cool things about that story. But at the end of the day, I just feel like that's such an interesting dynamic that you could take. The brain can go in a lot of ways when you trust it and you just trust life and God and whichever direction you're going in. There's so many great things that can happen. The 7-hour fishing trip's going to be awesome if you haven't been on it already.
Oh, we haven't been on it yet, but we go charter fishing all the time. And I know we just went, I took my kids on a baseball trip a couple weeks ago across the Midwest. So if I raised them like that every day, it would, I mean, if you've seen Animal House, that's what it's like when I tried to raise my children. But we went Asian carp fishing with a bow and arrow. So in central Illinois, Asian carp are destroying the river because it's an invasive species. So you shoot them with a bow and arrow. And that was the best time. So we love doing it. But if there's anything, I'll simplify what I've heard throughout this entire interview with a pattern, because that's what my brain does. And if there's anything that anyone can take from this, I would recommend this besides Colby. But so is if you have the right mindset, it attracts the right network and creates the right opportunities. So right mindset attracts right network, creates right opportunities. All this other stuff is business owner stuff. If you have the wrong mindset, it attracts the wrong network and creates the wrong opportunities. It's as simple as that.
And it's a great closing point. Justin Breen, where does everybody find you if they're looking for you and they want to follow you on social media? They want to buy your book. What do they do?
Thank you. This was a tremendous interview. The book, Epic Life. Very grateful. Dr. Peter Diamandis wrote the foreword. He's one of the top entrepreneurs on planet. That's available global level. I guess the main site is BrEpicLLC.com, and there's another shortcut process. There's a 5-minute mindset scorecard that people love taking. It's through the Strategic Coach platform. And I have found, as we just talked about, people qualify or disqualify themselves with their own mindset.
Justin, it's always great talking with you. It was nice to record this today.
Hope you recorded it.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was a great conversation. I'm really excited to share this with the world. Thanks for being our guest today. So happy to have you. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you liked it, there's more where this one came from. Click here and enjoy some more.